Today's real estate market is absolutely crazy. It's tailored mainly for the seller. They're getting just about everything they want, and people are losing offers left and right. In today's video, we're going to talk about these 7 tips plus one really big bonus at the end that will help you make sure that you're winning your next home and not having to offer 15, 20 times just to get a house. What is going on? My name is Andrew Armonger and I run the Emerald Group at eXp Realty right here in Destin, Florida. We cover everything from Pensacola to Panama City Beach and everything in between. So if you're purchasing in our area or you want to know everything about our area, make sure you hit that subscribe button and tap that little bell so that you'll be notified every single time we do a new video. And we are getting calls, texts, and emails all the time of people wanting to move to our area. So if that sounds like you, all of our information is right here on the screen. So go ahead and give us a call, text, email, carrier pigeon, smoke signal, paper airplane, however you want to get a hold of us, we will be here to help. We are hearing all over the country about how many offers people are having to write before they finally get their client the one, the right house, the infamous, beautiful forever home, or, for now home. Whatever it is for you, there are 7 things that we are suggesting to our buyers right now, plus one pretty big tip at the end. Actually, really stick around for that tip at the end. Even if you feel like leaving, make sure you go back there because that's the #1 tip that I'm seeing. But let's go ahead and get into this because these other 7 are so vital. They're so important to your success that you just absolutely need to be doing. So tip #1 is a local lender. Local for where you're buying, not local for where you are now. We hear all the time, we get people from different states. They're coming here and they're like, I love my lender. They're the best. They can do everything. They're licensed in Florida. They can do all of this. And that's great for a lot of things. And they might be able to do it on a single family home, which is what a lot of people will be buying. And they might not have an issue. Hopefully the house that you're buying isn't near the coastal construction line or there's nothing funky about it. There's, just nothing about it that's all that funky that is Florida specific. And then you'll probably be fine. And I love our lenders that are outside of the area too. They're very hardworking, especially if you already know one that you like. I'm not bashing on them at all. But I see people lose homes left and right because they're not using somebody local, particularly in the condo and Airbnb space, or if you're buying anything waterfront, because a lot of times the lenders don't understand everything that goes into Florida. If they're not doing a lot of deals in the area, they might not know all the nuances, which means their underwriter doesn't know the nuances too, because the lender isn't the only person that we're worried about. We need to worry about the underwriter as well. So point of this is contact a local lender, work with your real estate professional if you don't know somebody. Actually, work with your real estate professional anyway. That's going to be tip #2. Give me a little sneak preview. But ask them who they would prefer. They're going to know who's best based on your situation. So right after the home buyer consultation, that's one of the things that they should be providing you is a list of lenders that are perfect for your situation. I'm not going to suggest a condo expert for my VA borrower that's looking for a 3-bed, 2-bath in Crestview. Just not going to do it. That doesn't make any sense. But I am definitely going to suggest my condo person for anybody coming into town, even if they think that they have the best lender in the world, because I know for a fact that deals will fall through. We just had one happen last month where we tried to convince them over and over, please use our person, please, for the love of everything, use our person. I'm telling you, it's going to fall through. I've been telling them, told them in the consult, told them after the consult, told them a little bit further. If you're watching, I'm sorry. It's just not fun. And they lost out on it about 3 weeks into the process because the lender didn't understand that this was a condotel and that requires a different type of lending. In fact, most of the time it needs a portfolio loan. So you need a bank that's willing to hold on to the loan that doesn't have to follow Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac rules and investing rules and things like that. They can be a little bit more flexible. So point of this is they lost probably, I think it was like $3,800 in earnest money deposit. They lost an inspection, an appraisal, all of this stuff, money down the drain, probably close to $5,000 because they didn't want to listen to us. They didn't want to use somebody local because they had a previous relationship. And that's terrible. It's not a good time. It's something that we try our hardest to prevent. And unfortunately, we weren't able to. And then at the end, they were like, you're absolutely right. And ultimately, we did fight and get their earnest money deposit back. It's kind of a hairy situation. It wasn't fun for anybody involved, even the seller and the selling agent or the listing agent, because they're part of it too. They were on under contract for 3 weeks. They lost 3 weeks of market time because of a lender. Now, getting a local lender isn't always going to solve your problems. Sometimes a local person might not be great, but that's why you work with your real estate professional so that they can give you the highest chance of success Obviously, mistakes always happen. There could always be something that happens. It doesn't matter. It could be the best lender in the world. A mistake could happen, but at least you're reducing that risk. And that goes right into tip number 2 for us, and that is work with a local and trusted real estate agent. That is so important that they're local, they're trusted, they know what they're doing in the marketplace, because they're going to be able to offer you the lender that you need, and then all of these other tips plus more. So there might be things that are on my list that aren't applicable in your area that you're purchasing in, or there's other things that are more applicable. You might have more cash offers, you might have less. There's so many different things that go into it. So if you're buying in our area, contact us. All of the information is on the screen at the beginning and the end of all of our videos. You've got all of our contact information down below. And if you're buying somewhere else, or you're buying here and you're not utilizing us, just make sure that you're using an agent that knows what they're doing, and pick their brain. Talk to them about everything. If they're trying to push a buyer consultation on you, it's for a very good reason. Please do that. Don't ignore it and wait until the perfect house comes up and then go, oh, I want to offer on this, because you're probably going to lose. This happens a lot more than you think. They don't want to get pre-approved. We tell them, get pre-approved, get ready. I know you're not buying this week, but what about next week? What about the week after? And we just had one yesterday come through that says, hey, this is the perfect one. Let's go look. And I'm like, hey, did you get that pre-approval that I've been bugging you about for 3 months? Oh, no, we haven't had a chance. Great. We just submitted an offer without a pre-approval in the greatest seller's market in history. Do you think that seller is going to take it serious? Probably not. Now, we might get lucky. Luckily for us on this one, the agent on the other side's a full-timer, and so maybe we'll get it. But at the end of the day, it's now Saturday when I'm shooting this. The lenders aren't open. There's a low chance we're going to get a pre-approval. They might lose their dream condo because of that exact situation. So it's not fun for anybody. Try to get pre-approved as early as possible. Even if you're like, hey, I'm a month out, you just don't know what's going to happen, especially in a heavy seller's market where you might need to be a little bit flexible and purchase earlier. And that goes into tip number 3 on my list, and that is be flexible with everything that you're doing from start to finish. We'll talk about the finished portion here in a second, because I've got another tip for that, and it kind of goes along with this be flexible thing. But even early on, you need to be flexible with the neighborhoods that you're looking in, with the people that you're working with. Don't get stuck in your old ways of, hey, I've got a lender here, as I was mentioning before, or, hey, this is how it was done 10 years ago when I purchased. Get that out of your head and utilize the professional in front of you and try to be as flexible as possible. This also means that you might have to be flexible on your neighborhood or the city that you're looking in. For instance, if you're looking in Niceville, which is an area here in our local market, and you're stuck on Niceville, but your budget's a healthy budget, but for Niceville, it might not be healthy enough. Let's call it $350,000. You can buy homes in Niceville at $350,000 all day, but they're pretty rare. They don't come up as often. I won't call them rare. That's a misspeak, but they do come up a lot less often than something in the 4 to 5 or 4 to 600 range, which is the most common for that city. Now, you can still get under that. Like I said, I don't want you guys like, oh, we can't buy in Niceville now. But if you're a little bit more flexible, you might be able to buy in Freeport or Valparaiso, which is basically Niceville. It's kind of attached. Or Crestview or Fort Walton Beach, where that same $350,000 in Crestview is going to buy you this big home. But it is going to add on to your drive time if you're working near Niceville. So just keep all that stuff in mind. If you need to purchase 10 minutes away from where you originally thought and you're okay with that commute, then that could be a very good option to get more home for your buck. Tip number 4 for you is to solidify and stick to your budget. This is a big thing that I see a lot of people doing when the seller's market gets crazy, is they know that they can afford a certain amount. Let's call it $1,500 a month. I know that's not, that's low for some, high for others, whatever. It's kind of a nice little middle ground. And they're searching, and everything they offer on is going above list price because they're in a competitive price range, that $200,000 to $250,000. That should be closer to $250,000 to $275,000 at that price range, roughly. The competition's a lot higher. So try to stick to your budget and not go too far above that, because here's what's happening. You're losing out on a few. People are going above list price. You don't have the option to go that higher because you're looking right at that $350,000 range, and everything's going for $360,000 at that point, because just market is driving the price up and there's just that many buyers looking in this area. You're competing heavily. So sticking to your budget might mean that you actually have to go lower than that and say, you know what, I'm not looking at anything that's not $340,000 or less. I'm not going to look at the thing that's $345,000. I'm not even going to get my hopes up. I'm just going to go ahead and do it. Now, I'm not a big fan of not putting in offers just because you don't want to get your hopes up, but for some people that's going to be a lot less taxing taxing on their mental to do it that way than constantly losing out and getting discouraged. If you think you're going to get discouraged by offering 3 or 4 times and losing out, just don't do it. Lower the amount there. Now you've got the opportunity to go a little bit higher if you need to. And then this way you don't purchase a home that is a little bit outside of reach, that's going to stretch your budget a little too much. And in the event that an emergency comes up, you don't feel equipped to handle it because you're paying so much for your home. Don't put yourself in that position. It's called being house poor, and I'm very, very against it. Now, at the end of the day, if that's what you want to do, you feel comfortable with it, maybe you've got a raise coming around the corner, maybe your spouse and you are getting married, that's going to add an extra income. Like, there's so many different things that can go into your situation. That's fine. Talk to your agent about it, talk to your spouse about it, or whoever you're purchasing with. If you're purchasing a loan, talk to your agent, whatever, and just come up with a game plan moving forward. Stick to your budget, and then try to stick to that as much as possible. In the event that you have to adjust your budget down the road, just please make sure you're okay with that before you actually jump into it, because once you've got that mortgage, it's there, and it's probably not getting any lower. In fact, it's probably going to creep up over time, because that's what most mortgages do when the taxes and insurance slowly creep up over time. It's not going to be big jumps, but it is something to consider. Tip number 5 is writing the offer. Remove as many contingencies as possible. And this is going to be kind of a longer rant here on the offer writing, because there's a lot of tips to do that I want to talk about. Number 1, remove contingencies as much as possible. If you're able to remove contingencies such as the financing contingency, this means that you have the ability to pay cash and would be willing to do that. The second part's very important. It doesn't just mean you have the cash. It means you would be willing to, if push comes to shove, to use cash, and that nothing that the lender needs is going to inhibit the contract in any way. So you can write it's a cash offer on there, and then you can also still get a loan. Just keep in mind that anything on that loan, if that hinders the sale in any capacity, you're going to go back to cash and use that as the method to purchase. So if you're supposed to close on March 31st, let's say, and March 30th comes around, your lender says, hey, I need until April 2nd to close this thing. I'm sorry, our underwriters aren't ready. We just can't do this. Then you can talk with the seller and see if they are comfortable with moving in a couple of days. And if not, that's what you have the cash for. You can get the cash. You can refinance later if you want to. You can do whatever you want to your property. You paid cash for it. Got it. So if that's an option for you, you can use that to your advantage. Cash offers tend to do a little bit better because the lack of contingencies, but it doesn't mean that you don't have to get a loan with it. A lot of people don't know that portion. Now, there are other contingencies to consider, such as the inspection contingency. So you can actually waive that portion or even do as is, which we'll talk about here in a second. But the inspection contingency, you can waive and say, hey, we're going to get an inspection, but despite whatever the results are, we'll either move forward or we won't. We'll either pull out at that moment or we'll continue to go forward. This is basically doing it as is. There's 2 types of contracts here in the state of Florida. There's a regular and then an as is. There's technically a third one called crisp and far bar, and I'm not going to go into all that, but just know that it's basically with repairs and as is. With the as is portion, you're stating when you write the offer that you can go ahead and get it inspected, and you have the right to inspect it and the right to cancel. Now, you don't have to inspect it, but if you do, which you should, then no matter what the results are, you're saying in this offer that you're just going to go ahead and move forward with it, or use your right to inspect, right to cancel, and pull out. Now, that's not what normally happens. What most agents do is they use as is to get in the door, and then after they're under contract, they go, well, look at all this stuff. We want these 8 items fixed, these 15 items fixed. And unfortunately, that could really lose you a house. We have one right now that it was supposed to be as is. The other agent gave me the courtesy to call and say, hey, they're thinking about backing out because of this. I said, don't worry about it. Just send me over what you got. Let's see if we can work with it. That's how most agents are going to respond. But that doesn't mean that's how the seller is going to respond. The seller could have easily looked at that and said, well, they said as is, so see ya. They can either get out of this contract or, go ahead and take it, walk away, we'll put it back on the market, or she can elect to do some of these things and they can renegotiate. That's not how it's supposed to be done. For you real estate agents out there watching, that's not how it's intended. But if everybody agrees to discuss it, then it could be a good option. Just note that generally when you write an as is, you're taking it as is or you're walking away. And your earnest money deposit can be at risk if you wait too long for that. So keep all that stuff in mind. With repairs, if you have a repair one, let's give an example of a $1,000 repair limit. I'm not going to go into, there's so many details that go around all of this. I'm not going to go into that. We could talk about that if you decide to purchase down the road. But let's say it's a $1,000 limit and you look at it and it's like $3,000 worth of stuff and you want it all fixed. Great. You send it to the seller. Now the seller gets to elect to either fix just $1,000 worth or the whole thing. If they fix the whole thing, you can't walk away without losing your earnest money deposit if they elect to fix that. They don't actually have to do the work. They just have to say, yes, I will do that. So your money's at risk a little bit there. But of course, if they fix everything that you have a problem with, that's kind of a win in my opinion. It's not costing you anything extra and they're fixing it. So why not? In the event that there are repairs that do not equal that amount, then they're basically pre-negotiated, said that they're going to fix that. Now, all of this stuff has to be warranted. And again, there's a bunch of details around it, but that's how that portion works. So choose one of those offers, talk to your real estate professional about it. They should be able to walk you through which offer is going to be best. What I'm seeing right now is most of the time it's the as-is offers that are winning because they're not being handled appropriately and then they're asking for a bunch of repairs anyway. Again, not how it's supposed to be done. I think I've beaten that dead horse, so let's go ahead and move on. There are several different things you can add into a contract that makes it a little bit more appealing. One of the most popular tactics right now is to do what's called an escalation clause. Escalation clause says that, hey, we're going to pay above and beyond your next best offer by a certain amount. And if that wins us the bid, then that's what we'll do. So let's give an example. A $250,000 home, that's what it's listed for, 250 grand. And we do an escalation clause all the way up to 275,000. That's what we're comfortable paying, let's say at most. And we're going to do that in $2,000 increments above and beyond the net to the seller of the next best offer. So what that would do is that would just slowly increase that by 2,000 above the next best offer. So let's say in this example, the next best offer is 260,000 outright. We would now win the bid, assuming the seller wanted to take ours, because they don't have to take it just because it's better. They could technically take the other offer for any reason they want, as long as it's, following fair housing guidelines, of course. So in that event, 260,000, we would now pay 262,000, and that is the new agreed upon purchase price. So that's what we would go off of from this point on. Now, in the event that two people have the same thing, it's just going to cap out to the highest person. So if one of them did an escalation clause just like you did, all the way up to 260,000, the answer would be the same. It would go to 260, yours would be 262, the seller takes yours, you now win. So same situation either way, and that could go for any number of numbers that you add in there. Now, another thing that we've been doing for a little bit that is now starting to become popular here in our market is an appraisal gap. An appraisal gap is electing to pay in cash above and beyond what an appraisal is, because the loan is not going, or the bank is not going to loan you more money than the property is worth. It's just not safe for them. There's certain nuances where that could happen, but for the most part, they're not going to. So an appraisal gap would say, let's say in the same situation, that $250,000 home that we're getting for 262, let's say part of the winning bid was that we were going to pay $10,000 appraisal gap. And that means that we will pay $10,000 above up to our purchase price. So we're never going to pay more than 262. We're not going to go up to 272 if it appraises at 262. None of that. The max is 262. And we're going to cover $10,000 in cash if it's low. And let's say the appraisal does come in low. It comes in at 250,000. We're agreed upon at 262,000. At this point, the seller and the buyer could renegotiate, but your offer is essentially now $260,000 instead of $262,000. If the seller really wants to be a stickler, they could say, well, bump it up $2,000 more and we'll continue, because there's nothing tying them to it if they're not getting the agreed upon purchase price, even if you have that appraisal gap. That's very important. But 9 times out of 10, they're going to agree to it because you're paying above what it's worth. Why would the seller try to put it back on the market? We know what it's worth. That appraisal is going to stick with the house. It's not a good idea for them, unless of course they're going for a cash offer or something, which could happen. And then of course, when writing the contract, same as before, you want to make it as enticing as possible. The most money that you're comfortable with. I know all of this, I should blanket all of this with, you need to be comfortable with it. Don't do all of this and then get it under contract and start having remorse and going, I can't believe I did that. Where am I going to find this $10,000? And make sure that you're comfortable with everything. And if you're not, move away. There's always a better property around the corner. All right, I can keep talking about contracts and tactics all day. We've got a ton more tips, but I'm not going to make this a 2-hour-long video talking about it. So let's go ahead and move on to the next tip. And that is tip number 6, off-market properties. Your agent should be finding them for you. This goes back to finding an outstanding agent. And part of what we'll talk about in the bonus tip that you need to stick around for, it's the most important thing that we do. But with this, your agent should be finding off-market properties. You can also search for off-market properties. Don't be afraid to send them to your agent. You can do this on Zillow, primarily, Realtor.com, probably Trulia, all of the big sites. You can find what's called for sell by owners. Those are actively on the market. A lot of real estate agents like to look at them as the enemy. I don't personally look at them as the enemy. I look at them as somebody that's getting into real estate for the very first time. We actually keep lists of those so that if somebody's interested in finding something a little bit more specific, or maybe they're not finding what they're looking for, those gives us options that might not necessarily be competed for as hard. And in the event that you need the contract to be a little bit more enticing for you, because maybe you don't have the money to pay for all your closing costs, or maybe you want a home warranty, or you want them to pay title, or just insert whatever thing, thing, you might have a better option with an off-market property. For sale by owners are not the only ones, they're just one of the easiest ones to find. Your real estate agent should also be networking with wholesalers. These are people practicing real estate without a license and basically sell paper. So don't make this seem like it's a bad thing. It's not. They find people in a situation where they have to sell their home, and they tend to get them at better prices. Not always, but they tend to, and then they sell that to somebody else for a fee. So you could actually purchase from a wholesaler. You can also look at past expired homes, people that went on the market before and then went off for whatever reason, they didn't sell. And then of course, if you're looking for something very specific, you can ask your agent to do that. Let me give you an example of that. We've got somebody right now looking for a waterfront property in a very small part of one of our towns here in the area. I know they watch this, so I don't want to give out too much information, but we couldn't find it. It's just not on the market right now. So what we did is we blanket farmed the entire area with anybody that had a property that matched this very specific criteria. I think it was like 100 some odd properties. That's it, total, in the entire area of what they're looking for. And then on top of that, we had one of our assistants blast them with phone calls and just ask them, hey, we've got somebody really interested. It's a very specific property they're looking for, and it's yours, right? Like yours is one of those properties that they would be happy in. Do you have any inkling to sell at all? Like any thoughts of selling whatsoever? And if they do, we find it for them. Now in this event where there's only 100 some odd people to choose from, the chance of actually turning one is fairly low. It's just a numbers game. But if you're in a bigger city maybe, or your criteria is a little bit easier, they can actually help find some of this by digging through all the information. If you're just looking for a 3-bed, 2-bath in a specific neighborhood, well, then that gives you more options. And if you have options around 200 to 500 options in your city or with your criteria, chances are you're going to find somebody that's ready to sell soon. And now they might not sell directly to you. They might be in the process of getting it fixed up. That's happened to us before, where another agent's got it and we just network with that agent and be one of the first ones in. You might still be competing, but at least you'll know that it's coming ahead of time, and then you don't offer on something else that kind of fits what you're looking for when the perfect home is about to come up. So utilize your agent, utilize everything that you've got to put your best foot forward and try to find off-market properties. Oh, and I didn't even mention this portion, but a lot of agents will also have access to upcoming listings that they have, upcoming listings that their brokerage has, and sometimes upcoming listings that the entire multiple listing service has. Not every MLS service has this, but like in ours, we actually have a coming soon section that doesn't typically send to our people that are searching for properties. Of course, we generally do it kind of automatically with them, but not every agent does, so ask them about it. Are there coming soon properties in your area? How can you get those to me? Can you put me on email list of other people that are sending out properties? A lot of us will email properties back and forth to each other, particularly within our own brokerage, because that's perfectly fine. We're allowed to do that. We may not be able to market it to the public, but we can market it to some of our other coworkers, which is good. You might be able to find a property without even having to compete. And tip number 7 is to go ahead and hit that like button down below. It really helps us out with the algorithm. We really appreciate that. And don't be shy. Comment down below with any of your thoughts. Tip number 7 is kind of very similar to one of the other tips we talked about, and that's be flexible, but this time it's more aimed at during the contract portion instead of just during the home search phase. So be flexible with everything you do. A huge mistake that I see a lot of people do right now, and part of the reason why we're having so many homes come back on market, if you're seeing that a lot more, this is not normal. This is not how the real estate market has been in the last 7 or 8 years. It's only been in the last year or 2 that we've been seeing these kind of numbers of people backing out of contracts. And the reason being is because they're not being flexible, as I'm mentioning. So here's what people are doing that gets them in trouble. They put it under contract and they put their best foot forward and they just give the world to the seller. And from their eyes, they're like, well, I did everything in my power to do it. I paid above list price. I gave them everything they wanted. They better do everything that I say. And they do that. I'm not kidding. I've had people that are like, well, they will fix everything because I paid so much. But your offer is as is, or your offer says that they're only going to fix this much. What makes you think they're going to just do it because you're under contract now? Well, they don't want to have to go back on the market and lose time on market is what a lot of people think is happening. We're in the greatest sellers market that I've ever seen. At least I'm pretty sure we're in the greatest sellers market of this century. I'm not kidding. So my point with that is they can go ahead and take their home and throw it right back onto the market. It's not about the buyer anymore. It's about what the seller wants. We have to cater to them a little bit. The powers that be have just, that pendulum has swung. It is on their side. It will eventually be back on the home buyer side. Don't worry. But right now we're in the seller side. So if you're purchasing right now, you need to be flexible. Don't start adding in things after the contract is already done and start being demanding and asking for things that you don't need. Let me give you an example of one that we're dealing with exactly in this moment. Another great agent here in our marketplace put a home under contract after multiple offers. They won the bid. And now they got the home inspection, and now they're like, oh, there's all sorts of things wrong with this home. Now, mind you, my client had just purchased this home about 9 months ago, so not a lot has happened since then. I kind of already knew what was going to come up with this property because we had just had it inspected right when she bought it. So I say, you know what, just go ahead and send us, it was supposed to be as is, I should have mentioned that. Go ahead and send us your repair request, and I'll see what I can do about this, because it might be better for her to fix some stuff than it would be for her to put it back on the market. So they did, and they gave me a page this long of just really nitpicky repairs. Just like, I'm talking batteries inside of smoke detectors. They're like, if that doesn't get fixed, we're walking. That's an actual stipulation for a $3 battery. Some outlets not working, a hinge not being tightened down enough. Just a lot of this is stuff that the owner can do very simply, so it's not that big of a deal. And I'm not faulting the other agent or the buyer for it at all. It's natural. You paid above list price for this. You're expecting to get a great home, and then you get the inspection, you're like, oh, great, there's more here than I wanted to mess with. I understand it. I'm just stating that if you want to make sure that you're not losing properties, you need to be flexible in this and go, okay, cool, what does it look like? Maybe take that list of things that you don't like, hand it to a handyman and go, realistically, what's this going to cost me? And if it's something that you're comfortable with, I wouldn't even bring it up. You're just risking that the seller walks away. This was an as-is deal. The seller could easily go, see ya, we'll throw it on the market for the next person. And maybe the next person does all the tips that we're asking for and says, hey, you know, what do we need to do to win this? And they get a better offer that doesn't want any repairs. The seller's in control. Every day the market is going up. It's not going the other way. So if you put it on a contract for a week and a half and then they throw it back on the market, there's a good chance you're going to get a better price for it. Now, it's not guaranteed, but there is a good chance. A lot of buyers are in this mindset, well, if I walk, they're not going to have any other buyers. Dude, I'm sorry, but there's 200 more of you around the corner. And that's not to say you're not special or anything like that. Your home buying journey is very important. I'm just stating you need to be flexible in order to help continue in some of these bids. So don't be crazy about the repairs if you can help it. Now, if there are items that you're like, ooh, it's not going to work for me, I'm sorry. Cool. On an as-is contract, you have a right to inspect, right to cancel. Go ahead and take your ducks and go back home, if you will, right? And find a different property that you're a little bit more comfortable with. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you love the property, try to be as flexible as possible. And on that subject, if there are some extra repairs that you don't necessarily want to mess with right now, but you're the house as it is and fixing it later, then getting a home warranty might be another great solution, because in this event you can use that home warranty when things break to help you fix some of the items. There will be a call out fee, and there's only certain things that they will fix. It's not like, it's not like they're going to come out there and fix anything and everything, but they are going to fix a good chunk of that. So you can always throw that into your offer, or you can purchase it at any time. You don't even have to put it as part of the real estate deal. You don't even need to do it while you're purchasing the home. If you would like, you can actually do that after you've already purchased the home. You could be in it for 6 months and go, you know what? I want a home warranty. Trust me, that's what they're there for. Utilize them. They're great. I've used them personally on my home when I first purchased way back in the day, and I still keep it on one of my homes right now. All right, for your bonus tip, before we get into it, if I didn't mention it already, please comment down below with your thoughts so far in this video. This next tip probably should have been first. It's probably the best thing that we see that real estate agents are doing to win the bid, and I'm going to give you a couple of examples that we just had yesterday of the same thing happening, and that is work with your agent and have your agent work with the other agent and the seller. Now, that's pretty blanket, but what do I mean by that? I mean, have your agent pick up the phone, text, call, however they're messaging the listing agent, and ask the question, what's it going to take for my customer to get this? What's it going to take for my client to get this home? What's it going to take for your seller to accept us over the other ones? And I know that seems really, really, really silly, but I'll tell you this, as somebody that's, tends to have a lot of homes for sale personally on the listing side, only about 10% of agents are doing this. It's crazy to me. I ask this on everything. What's important? Do they want post-occupancy or repairs? What about as is? The type of loan, is that important? Is it just about the money? Are there other things? Is there a closing date that they want? Are they moving somewhere? Listen, I literally had somebody lose out on an offer the other day that was a little bit better than the previous offer because the closing date was different. We could have easily countered, and I even told my client that, and I said, hey, we can just counter offer and change this from March 22nd to March 25th when you're ready to be out of the home. And she was like, you know what? I just want it done. It's only about $1,000 difference. Let's go ahead and use the second person. So we used the second person. The best offer lost out because of a closing date. And the crazy part is when I mentioned it to the agent, they were like, well, the closing date didn't matter. We could have changed it at any time. And I'm like, great. I told my client that, but she didn't care. And all you had to do was ask me before you wrote the offer and just say, hey, is anything important? Yes, March 25th or later is absolutely imperative for her. Or we do a rent back or something, right? And this is one extreme example. This is not the norm by any means, but it does make a big difference. Sometimes asking the right question is the difference between getting the house and not getting the house. Let me give you another example. We just had one that we just put under contract about 45 minutes before I jumped on this video that did exactly that. It was actually an off-market property because it had fallen through a couple of times. We needed some repairs on it. The house was actually fine. It was pretty minor stuff for the most part. And people just kept walking away. In fact, the second person that offered on it just woke up the next day and they were like, we just don't want the house. I'm so sorry. We wasted everybody's time. So it's like, my client is going through a heck of a time trying to sell this house because it's not bad at all. It was all pretty minor stuff. So anyway, this person had offered 3 times on it and lost. All 3 times. And the agent called me and she just goes, you know what, Andrew, I am so sorry that I'm having to do this, but I need to know what's it going to take? Just outright, what will it take to win this bid? And I said, well, I need to talk to my seller first. I'm not allowed to divulge that information directly. So I contact my seller. I'm like, hey, are you cool with me giving the information of the last offer that won the bid? And he was like, yeah, absolutely. Great, cool. So I call her back and I let her know, hey, listen, I don't know if this is going to win your bid. I've got another offer already and I'm expecting one more at least. And this is while it's off market. We're getting 3 offers on a property that's not even on the market just because they saw it. And these agents were good enough to make sure that they stayed in touch with us and go, hey, I know it says it's off market. Do you mind if I still offer on it? So it goes back to that tip that I was saying before, finding off market properties. That's exactly what they did. So good on every one of those agents that did that. I'm so happy for them. Like, that's so good. And she did this. And then she took it a step further and said, what's it going to take? She's like, I'm not hanging up this phone till you tell me what it takes. She didn't say that. She's not going to be that aggressive. That would be silly. Don't tell your agent to be that aggressive. It turns off a lot of people. But I said, you know what? I talked to the seller and he says this isn't going to guarantee it to you, but this is what won the last bid and the one before. And I gave her the exact details to a T because I had the permission from my seller, right? She writes that up. We just signed off on it a little bit ago, and now we're under contract for that because she did what she needed to do. And all from asking, hey, what's it going to take, right? That is such a powerful question. There's so many little nuances that a seller might use to not continue on with the deal, right? So the entire point with this is ask the question and tell your agent to ask the question too. This is why it's so important to work with somebody that's got a good reputation and that is willing to fight for you and that isn't so undeniably busy that they just can't do anything. Because there are agents out there that are very good at what they do, but they're so busy they can't get anything done. I'm not going to go into examples of this just in case any of my fellow agents watch my channel. I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but we've had a lot of situations like this happen where it's just not, they're just so busy. And it's like, what a shame, like you could hire other agents, you could bring on admin stuff, whatever. But the point of this is finding the right agent is so critical. It's so important. And a good reputation is very important too. This should not, the reputation thing should not come into play at all. And it probably won't in most situations. But I can tell you from experience, if it's between a full-time agent in this market that I know does great work and isn't going to fuss about something versus an agent on the other side that I've dealt with before that is just a royal pain in the butt. They fight over everything. They ask for stuff they shouldn't be asking for. They threaten things they shouldn't be threatening to ruin the deal if something doesn't go their way. This is way more common than most people think. Very, very common. And if it's between those two and the offers are the exact same, I can't tell my seller which one to take, but I sure can give them my experience and say, hey, I've worked with Agent A. Agent A knows how to talk to their client. Agent A knows that, this is as is. They're not going to ask for a bunch of crazy repairs. Now, if there are deal killers, they're going to bring that up. Agent B might just walk away. Agent B might ask for the moon and the stars for their client. And they're doing what they need to do for their client or what they think is best for their client. That's the crazy part. I don't mean hire a pushover. I don't mean that at all. But reputation really, really matters. So if this other person's going to be a stickler and they're going to change things and they're going to be a pain in the butt, they're going to show up to the house unannounced, they're going to show up for the inspection and nitpick everything and get on to you as the seller about the batteries that aren't in the thing. And I'm not giving that agent any crap at all. I don't mean that in that aspect. I'm just saying if it's between those two, they're going to choose the person that can control their client and that can make things a little bit smoother on them, because nobody wants the added stress of selling a home on top of an agent on the other side that is just being, a little bit aggressive or a little bit too much for them. It's just not fun. It adds to the stress. not great. So there's no real way to find out reputation per se. That's just something you're going to have to jive with your agent. When you contact them and you're interviewing people and you're trying to figure out who's best for you, you're going on their website, they're calling you, you guys are having that conversation back and forth. If they seem like they're a pain in the butt to work with, they're definitely a pain in the butt on the other side. In fact, what I've noticed a lot of times is a real estate agent that is kind of a pain in the butt to their client tends to amplify that 20 times during the deal. And I don't know if that's just random. I don't know if that's just my experience. I don't know. But if you're getting that vibe, the other people are going to get that vibe. And even though that should not go into it, ethically, that should not go into it at all. I understand it. I get it. I just know that if the seller asks the question and we have to give our experience, it will make a difference in the seller's eyes. So please keep that in mind. Hiring a good, reputable agent that knows what they're doing is vital. Now that I'm off my soapbox on that, those are the 7 tips plus, of course, the great bonus of how to win in a heavy seller's market. I really appreciate you guys watching. If you guys have not commented anything and you're watching our videos, please comment something, just say hi. We really do love to talk to you guys. In fact, if you look down in the comment section, I guarantee we've responded to just about everything. So please contact us down below. We'd love to chat with you. And if you have any real estate needs, all of my information is on the screen. Go ahead and give us a call. That's it for this week. We'll see you next week. See ya.